Ah oui, après, d'accord.
Oui. Et en complément peut-être de réponse il y a la question du biais cognitif quand on travaille sur, ça permet de répondre aussi à votre question, mais à chaque fois qu'on conçoit un jeu, on met au clair le plus possible le biais de sa conception et aussi le biais de la façon dont les joueurs vont le jouer. Et juste un exemple, nous avons participé à la construction et à l'animation il y a quelques semaines d'un jeu dans le cadre du Battle Lab Rance, et donc dans le monde du renseignement militaire, d'intérêt militaire, on est dans des cas où il y a forcément des biais cognitifs, et le renseignement militaire connaît bien ces questions. Donc quand on conçoit le jeu qui va avec, on prend en compte les biais, la façon dont on conçoit l'ennemi, dont on conçoit aussi même ses alliés et leurs échanges. Mais c'est tout un autre sujet qui mériterait de larges débats. Ivanka.
Merci beaucoup Patrick Reichmann. Et donc maintenant j'ai le plaisir d'accueillir Madame Ivanka Barzashka. Merci beaucoup Madame. I hope I well pronounce your name. Yeah, if you want, like you want, or you prefer like you want. Thank you for your presence. Je vais vous présenter en français et puis je dirai comment en anglais après. Vous êtes Madame Ivanka Barzashka est chercheuse associée au Center for Science and Security Studies. Elle est spécialiste en particulier des risques nucléaires, de l'impact des technologies et étudie ces questions grâce à des serious games de nature stratégique. Thank you again for your presence. I propose you have 30 minutes to explain us how the wargaming, how you created the wargaming, how you manage a wargaming network in your science works. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Yes, it's okay.
Yes. It's an honor to be here today as we mark two important milestones. The first is the second Forum for Serious Games and Wargaming. And so my congratulations for building on the success of last year's event and turning this into an annual event that's drawing people from all over France and Europe. And my colleagues at King's and I are very pleased to support you in this important endeavor in growing the French community of expertise and community of interest in wargaming, which is a field of growing strategic significance. Wargaming methods, particularly analytical wargaming methods, will provide NATO allies with new tools for strategic innovation that will enable us to test and develop theories for success in the new strategic environment. And this is a critical capability that we need to be developing together so that we can outthink competitors quickly, reliably, and at scale. So the second milestone, which I'm very pleased to share with you and is the focus of my remarks today, is the first anniversary of the King's Wargaming Network. So a year ago, we founded a wargaming network within King's College London as part of the School of Security Studies, which aims to advance wargaming as a method of inquiry and as a method for learning and teaching. And so while our research venture is very young, it builds on nearly 2 decades of King's teaching and scholarship in this field. So I will talk about, I will begin with an introduction of why we established the network, what it is, what it does, and then I will share with you my own reflections on what we have learned from the first year of activities, focusing on what I see as the key challenges in adapting wargaming to the new environment. And finally, I will highlight our plan for the following, for this year, for 2020, in building the future of wargaming and and also some ways in which you could get involved. So we established the Wargaming Network in December 2018 with the aims of advancing wargaming as a method of inquiry and as a method for learning and teaching. Why did we do that? Why did we establish the network? It actually builds on a long history of King's wargaming research and education activities, and serves as a hub for the growing community of King's students and staff that are studying and applying war games and simulations. We have had since 2003, so for the last 17 years, a graduate level course in conflict simulation. We have had students defend PhD dissertations on wargaming topics, and many of these students, many of these King's alumni are now leading the reinvigorated effort in wargaming across the globe. We have alumni that are at the UK Defense Science and Technology Lab, at the US Department of Defense, at the Swedish Defense Research Agency, and the Finnish Center for Hybrid Conflicts. And we're very pleased to have this legacy. But we conceived of the Wargaming Network in late 2017 as a result of a particular research project that was quite successful. This was a project funded by the Carnegie Corporation of New York. And the intention at the time was to establish the first university-based research center focusing on developing wargaming as an academic discipline, and also as a way of uniting previously disconnected elements of King's expertise to provide a foundation for future institutional resilience and growth. Now, my own interest in wargaming came before that in 2014 with the application for this Carnegie research grant, which focused on understanding the strategic roles of missile defense and its impacts on modern deterrence and nuclear risk. So how disruptive technology, how does missile defense, how does that affect nuclear risk in the changing circumstances? And I had no particular interest in wargaming as a tool. My background actually is in physics and international relations, and I had an interest in understanding the changing character of warfare, and was also hoping to do some modeling and simulation of these strategic issues. But you can't model what you don't know. And so in a period in a new period and a new strategic era when the factors are unknown, when the relationships are unclear, wargaming is particularly valuable. So that's why I turned to wargaming. And it quickly became apparent that there's no off-the-shelf method that you can use. And the way you do a literature review in wargaming is you seek out the oldest and smartest person that you can find, and you hire them as a consultant, which is what we did. And we ended up producing 2 new strategic wargaming methods, so analytical wargaming methods. And in this process have engaged over 70 researchers. So now that wargaming is in vogue, it's quite easy to forget the stigmas associated with wargaming. About 5 years ago, we co-founded the Wargaming Network at King's with Professor Phil Sabin, who was initially very skeptical that this endeavor could work. that the institution would support it, that there will be funding available, that there'll be interest in the wider community. And in fact, he gave 14 reasons why this will never work. And you can find his 14 stigmas of wargaming at the 2013 UK Connections website. So you can look at his presentation on, here's why wargaming is unappreciated. But nevertheless, we embarked on this risky venture. And now the university, so King's, has identified wargaming as a key growth area. We've hired 2 new faculty with wargaming expertise. We have a new PhD student that's writing a dissertation on a wargaming topic, 2 new fellows, including one from Brazil. We've hired 7 graduate students to support research, and so there's a growing interest, and we're expanding, and certainly have exceeded our own expectations. So this is the intellectual history. This is the organizational history. But the intellectual reasons for founding the network are grounded in the changing security environment. And some of the speakers before me touched on this. So I will briefly say that we established the Wargaming Network as really a reflection of intellectual humility at a strategic inflection point. A recognition that we need improved tools for understanding and addressing important security challenges in the new strategic era. And so this strategic inflection point is characterized by high uncertainty. It's also characterized by a lot of political and technological change. We have new major power challengers and the familiar threats posed by regional and non-state actors. So this new strategic problem set has created new analytical requirements and the need to outthink and outcompete adversaries that have been going to school on us, as my American colleagues like to say. This has been the main driver in the growing interest among government officials in the US and in the UK. And while these changed circumstances provide an environment in which wargaming holds potential, its misuse also creates dangers, and I'll talk a little bit about that later on. So in the UK, there's been a considerable effort in reviving wargaming as a method for delivering robust analysis and innovation, and one example is the newly established Office for Strategic Net Assessment within the UK Ministry of Defense, which we're working with and which is very interested in developing and applying new analytical wargaming techniques. So what does the Wargaming Network do? Our activities fall broadly into 5 groups. So we have a convening function. We organize workshops. We host public lectures. Those lectures are open to the public and the community in London, and people travel to attend them. They're also live streamed on YouTube, and they're available on SoundCloud for you to access. And I've included our contact information and website details there's some information about that as you exit on your right. The network also supports individual staff projects. So it doesn't do research as a network. You know, the network does not author papers, it does not lead projects. It enables individual researchers to do that. Thirdly, we have had a rapporteur training program for analytical wargaming, which we developed in 2016, so it's now in its third year. And it's been very successful in training graduate students and junior experts in being game staff and supporting war game analysis. And some of these, the alumni of the program have gone on to develop their own wargaming projects in the UK and in the US. Fourth, we test and execute war games for research and education. We support that for King's staff, but also for external partners. So for example, last year we supported the project on nuclear gaming, which is a consortium from Lawrence Livermore National Lab, Sandia, and UC Berkeley. And they ran a data collection event at King's. It went through a long process of ethical review. We recruited King's students, and ultimately this resulted in data that is in research data that they're now using and publishing. And finally, we organize social networking events that foster learning among key stakeholders with the aim of bringing the three communities, academics, policymakers, and professional wargamers together. So what have we learned in our first year of activities? Activities were organized around gaining an understanding of the key challenges for adapting wargaming theory and practice to address the new security challenges facing the UK and its allies. And these lectures and workshops and events that I mentioned to give you an idea of the level of interest and impact, they've brought together 1,400 unique participants from 22 countries, and the SoundCloud podcasts of the three lectures have been listened to 16,000 times. So this is, I mean, these are indicators that this is really a growing field. There's a lot of interest both within the UK but also globally, and we have been receiving requests from support from Europe and Middle East and Asia and Australia and even South America. So this is truly a rising global interest in wargaming. So as a result of this process, we have been listening and learning. We have been collecting data, and I will share what I see as the three main challenges for adapting wargaming to the new circumstances. The first is the gap between the high policy interest and expectation from what wargaming can deliver, so very high interest, and what I would say is the state of the art in wargaming theory and practice, which is quite low. And this is a gap that poses both dangers and opportunities. So there's a growing policy interest in wargaming. There's an interest in more wargaming, but what I would say is that, in fact, we need better wargaming and better value from wargaming. We hosted Edward Stringer, who is the Director General of the UK Defence Academy at King's, and I will read to you what he said. "We hope to see success with innovative war games continuously implemented, supported by proper analysis and the latest technology to generate sustained advantage in these uncertain times and a rather unpredictable future. To do that, we must regain the habit of wargaming." So there's a lot of policy interest, but this gap between expectation and reality was starkly revealed in a workshop that we held on strategic analytical wargaming, which brought together wargame consumers, so organizations like U.S. Strategic Command, the Department of Defense, NATO headquarters, the UK Cabinet Office on one hand, and on the other hand, wargame producers like the Naval War College, the UK Defense Academy, the Dutch Research Organization. And one senior participant described a single strategic level game as a visceral experience which significantly influenced resource allocation decisions at the cabinet level. Now, from all of you that have been doing this for a while, will ask, but how reliable is a single game, and should we be making decisions based on one game, however good or engaging it might be? There are also games that have been run repeatedly. For example, the U.S. Strategic Command's degree war games that focus on deterrence, escalation, and nuclear risk, that some say have failed to produce cumulative insights on escalation in the new strategic environment. There are other experts that are familiar with wargaming in the UK that lament that often war games for strategy development are run on very tight schedules as part of an intense defense estimate process. So they're often interpreted in very quickly and without proper consideration of the available data. So this creates both dangers and opportunities, because if wargaming is to deliver credible policy insights, it should be done in a manner that is defensible, that is scientific. Yep. And so this brings me to the need for developing wargaming as an academic discipline, and in bridging the gap between the expectation and the state of the art. And this includes particularly moving analytical wargaming more in the science direction, and by that I mean not being quantitative, but being systematic, making sure that premises follow from conclusions follow from premises, that war games are presented in a way that allows for peer review, so that outside experts with appropriate clearances can reproduce the results, can understand the logic. The development of wargaming as an academic discipline also involves democratizing wargaming education. And our colleagues from RAND talked a little bit about this, and this is what we need to be doing to bridge the gap between the policy expectation and the state of the art, to help address the dangers and reap the opportunities.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this, the presentation of King's Wargaming Networks. That I forgot to say that you are a founder and co-manager. It was very important. Sorry for that. Je crois qu'on peut prendre quelques questions.
We can take one question here. Et après, on fera une petite annonce sur l'organisation pour respecter les horaires quasi militaires.
Alors, quelques questions, soit sur l'intervention, soit sur l'ensemble des témoins qui sont encore avec nous.
Oui, bonjour David Khan. Vous avez parlé de l'utilité du wargaming pour la prévision d'une situation stratégique et sa résolution. Moi, j'aurais tendance plus à insister sur son utilité pour l'entraînement. Parce que le problème de toutes nos disciplines stratégiques et militaires, c'est que nous n'avons pas d'entraînement en réel, nous avons seulement des manœuvres. Et la seule manière d'être confronté à un adversaire, c'est de faire du wargaming. Donc pour moi, le wargaming, c'est pas un plus, c'est indispensable. C'est pas suffisant, mais c'est indispensable. Et évidemment, ça peut aussi permettre d'essayer de prévoir dans un conflit plus large ce que pourrait faire l'adversaire pour essayer de gagner, comme les Chinois l'ont fait pour la Corée, les Allemands pour la France ou Nimitz pour les Japonais. Merci.
Ok.
C'était pas une question à Madame.
Oui, c'était pas une question.
La question,
c'était plutôt une remarque.
est-ce qu'il ne faudrait pas s'orienter de manière décisive vers l'entraînement et montrer en quoi c'est indispensable pour s'entraîner?
So wargaming for training instead of predicting. What is your opinion?
So wargames generally fall into two types. Wargames for learning and teaching, so wargames for educational purposes, and wargames for research and innovation. The value of wargaming for education is less contentious than analytical wargaming. Wargames provide a very immersive environment that enables learning. This has been done in the military, but it's also increasingly done at universities with crisis simulations. King's, our Department of War Studies also teaches history through wargaming. So students in bachelor's and MA courses actually play board games to simulate historical battles, and that helps them understand what happened.
Yes, thank you. Est-ce que le colonel Maresca veut dire un mot sur justement s'entraîner, le wargaming et l'entraînement? Une question. Le mot, la question.
The very last.
Thank you for your presentations. When we have to speak about wargame, we face the main issue for me is to speak about game. Do you have a suggestion to improve networking about that point? Do you have a suggestion to change the world of games into another one? What is your impression about that?
So this is one of the 14 stigmas of wargaming, which I don't see as being a problem anymore, and particularly in the UK and in the US. And actually, the word wargaming has a lot of pull. Wargaming is now cool. We've gotten calls from very large consulting companies that do business strategy and innovation, saying, wargaming, we want some of that, we don't know anything about it, how do you do it? So wargaming is the method for strategic innovation. So I think some of the problem, I think, is actually turning into an opportunity for us.
Et je crois qu'une petite dernière question, madame.
Ce sera vraiment
Bonjour, Madame Châtel, mandatée pour les industries à la Caisse régionale d'assurance maladie Île-de-France en prévention pour le Collège des salariés des industries d'Île-de-France. Thank you for your presentation.
Résumé en anglais, c'est un peu compliqué, mais bon, allez-y.
Thank you for your presentation. What do you think about the place of the wargaming in this question? How you can do the progress between the cost culture and the repair and prevention culture. How you can develop this concept to pass cost to prevent with the wargaming, what's place? And second one is what's place of the wargaming in the crisis scenario about Seveso industry?
C'est un peu précis la deuxième question. Hein. Je ne pense pas qu'une personne de UK puisse répondre à Seveso, mais sur la première, si on essaie de la rephraser, c'est en gros le lien entre le coût, les budgets, et le fait qu'il faut allouer des budgets au...
Oui, mais enfin, madame est plutôt spécialiste des questions stratégiques. Hein,
oui,
mais
donc je pense que la question... Ouais. On peut tout modéliser, donc modéliser ce genre de problématique, pourquoi pas, et être joué par des personnes de la CNAM et des personnes surtout qui ne sont pas de la CNAM pour pouvoir donner un point de vue. Je pense que c'est sans doute ça qui est intéressant. Mais bon, c'est une question assez spécifique, mais on pourra volontiers en parler peut-être en direct pour pouvoir
So I understand the question is about the cost effectiveness of war games.
Well, somehow.
And I'm happy to take this
Sure.
offline, but war games are actually quite expensive. And so they need to be used very sparingly and in combination with other methods. I think now we're falling into the trap of wanting to war game everything all the time, particularly in the UK, with the new strategic defense review. That would include a wargaming component, a strategic exercise, and every senior leader now wants a war game. They don't know why, but they
Sure.
want some.
Yeah, true.
thank you
Okay.
for your
Thank you
answer.
very much, Ivanka. Thank you.